If you're a new player to DC Dark Legion, this video is going to be very helpful for you. We're continuing our deep dive series on Bleed Limited Banner Champions. The Joker is the second champion on the Bleed calendar, and if you're on one of the newer servers or if you started playing after global launch, then Joker should be appearing as soon as Superman's Bleed hits about 14 days remaining. Today we're going to talk about whether you should use your anvils to draw for Joker or save for the next Bleed Banner Champion. And we're also going to talk about minimum viability. We'll talk about Joker's kit and force talents. And we'll also talk about a little bit of team synergy. So should you draw for Joker? 100% yes. Joker is an S tier champion and he has the best damage over time mechanic in the game. I do think that non-spenders are in a tough spot with the Joker because you're probably just coming off of doing heavy draws on Superman, and we know Scarecrow comes right after the Joker. Obviously, the higher you can get his stars, the better, but this is a champion who has some level of viability at 5 white stars, which is what you're seeing here, or even at 0 stars with decent gear due to the fact that a lot of his damage comes from his ultimate. For planning purposes, I think the best bet for non-spenders and light spenders would be to try and get Joker to 5 white stars minimum, maybe go for 2 blue stars, and then shoot for 5 white stars on Scarecrow. The Scarecrow that you see here is actually at 0 stars. New free-to-play players need to understand that going for Joker and Scarecrow will likely mean you need to sit out Deathstroke's banner, but that will give you an opportunity to get Sinestro built up well for what I think is one of the best synergistic teams in the game today. Joker, Ivy, Scarecrow, Sinestro, and Lex Luthor or another Legion of Doom champion. Non-spenders and light spenders might have to settle for Black Adam or Killer Croc in the Lex Luthor slot, or even just sub in their Superman or another high-level champion. Wells can replace Lex with Deathstroke. Now, if you put together the recommended team, including Lex Luthor, you're going to get 3 different tag synergy bonuses. You'll get the 3-stack Arkham bonus, which is 20% effect accuracy, which means that Joker and Scarecrow and Ivy and some of these other characters are going to be able to get off their debuffs a lot more efficiently. You're going to get the Weapon Master 3-stack, which is 10% attack, and then you're going to get the 3-set Legion of Doom bonus, which is energy restoration speed increase of 15%. So you're going to be cycling around to your ultimates and your other skills a lot faster. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of the tag synergies from the Arkham squad at the end of the video. So let's talk about Joker's kit. Joker's ultimate is Joker Venom, and this ultimate is going to do a single target spiritual damage attack with a 50% chance to inflict 10 stacks of Joker Venom for 20 seconds. So the more you can cycle his ultimate, the higher the likelihood of getting capped out on the damage over time effect. If the enemy reaches 50 stacks of Joker Venom after casting your ultimate, so it's basically calculating once you cast the ultimate, if the enemy reaches the 50 stacks after that point, all of their debuffs and weakening effects spread to other enemies up to 5 stacks per effect. Additionally, if an enemy dies with Joker Venom, their debuffs and weakening effects will also spread up to 5 stacks per effect. So, what is Joker Venom? Joker Venom deals spiritual damage equal to 6% of Joker's attack per second, and it stacks up to 100 times. Now, you're not going to be getting the full damage effect immediately from this damage over time, and that means that Joker is much more efficient. He's a better champion in battles that are sustained against enemies that don't die very quickly, because the longer a enemy is around to continue to receive the debuff, the higher likelihood you're going to be able to cap out at that 100 stacks, and then you're going to be doing massive amounts of damage for the remainder of the fight. Obviously, you have to deal with enemies that are able to cleanse the debuff, but you get the idea. Joker Venom makes the Joker one of the best champions for combat cycle, but I think his kit is also a limiting factor in other game modes. So do some experimentation, especially if you're going to be going after building the Joker and some of his squad mates. You definitely want to be kind of experimenting and seeing how his kit works in action. Try some training simulator, see how far you can get or what you can do with him there. I think any champion is going to be good for the story mode, so you could probably use him there. But for the most part, Joker is going to do his best work in combat cycle. I don't think he's a great PvP champion. Obviously, I still think he's correctly ranked as S tier, but there's gonna be some limiting factors here. Now, if you're going against like a stall out team, then Joker might actually be worth putting in, because then maybe you can ramp some of that damage up. But in Meta Brawl, you're not going to have as much time as some of the other game modes, so keep that in mind. Joker's next skill is called What a Gas, and this is an AoE spiritual damage attack. It also has a 50% base chance to inflict 2 stacks of Joker Venom for 20 seconds. Now, you notice that the ultimate also has a base chance of inflicting the Joker Venom debuff. We'll talk about that base chance in a moment. With Force Investment, this skill will also reduce the cooldown on your ultimate, so it's definitely good to get some of that force pumped into Joker to be able to do that. The next skill is Big Laugh, and Joker's spiritual amp is going to increase by 10%. Also, each of his attacks will have a 50% base chance to inflict 1 stack of Joker Venom here, and this can only be triggered once per second. The other thing that's important here is that investing in force for this skill will increase the Joker's effect accuracy. So there's a couple of things we should talk about here. First, Spiritual Amp is a mechanic that increases the range of your damage. So it's going to allow Joker to reach more of the battlefield. He'll be able to apply his dot to more enemy champions on the battlefield. The other thing is effect accuracy. So effect accuracy is going to increase the base chance of inflicting debuffs. You can see that Joker starts with that 50% chance to inflict Joker Venom. Now, I've got his effect accuracy at 40.8%, so that means I have a 90.8% chance to inflict Joker Venom. That's something that you can further increase by adding a little bit more force, or also equipping a legacy piece that might have effect accuracy on it as well. I just want to explain a couple of those mechanics so that you can understand how those things react to or work with all the different skills. The final skill is Buzz Off, and this skill, it basically calculates at the beginning of the battle how many Arkham's Most Wanted allies you have present, and Joker's going to gain 1 stack of 5% attack up for each Arkham ally present. So we talked about some of the tag synergies and the team that I recommended that has 3 Arkham's Most Wanted allies on it. If you use that team, you're going to be getting 15% attack up. You'll also notice that Force Investment is going to increase his attack even further. But let's talk about Joker's Force talent tree. So I think enhancing your basic skills is going to be important. I generally recommend to people that these 3 are always worth upgrading because they can often be very impactful. You can see we've got one that increases effect accuracy, as I mentioned earlier. There's one that's going to reduce the cooldown of Joker Venom, and then there's one that's going to increase Joker's attack. However, there are a few normal force talents I'd highly recommend for Joker. So you have the effect accuracy boost that's going to be in the bottom left. You've got the energy gain bonus in the bottom middle. And of course, long term, the best attack and HP bonuses will come from the percent increase talents. Unlike Superman with the worthless crit damage talent, over time, I recommend that you actually fully upgrade all of Joker's force, especially if he's a champion that you're going to be using for quite a while. It's definitely important to get his forces fully upgraded as you can. Well, let's talk about legacy pieces. So the Fool's Scepter is the Joker's premium legacy piece. You can obtain this by spending 200 magic eyes, so it is very difficult to obtain one of these. It could potentially take you literally months of farming magic eyes in order to get this, so you definitely want to be looking at my videos and some of the infographics that are floating around on how to do Supreme Commander so that you can get those magic eyes. The Fool's Scepter, you're getting an attack increase and spiritual amp increase. And there are also 2 skills on this legacy piece. So the first one is going to increase effect accuracy, and it can also increase attack and heal him as well. And the second skill increases the damage over time bonus, and over the first 30 seconds of a battle, it increases Joker's spiritual amp. So this is an incredibly impactful legacy piece for the Joker. If you're wanting the Joker to be sort of your win condition, like your strongest champion on the battlefield, you'll definitely want to get the full scepter eventually. However, there are a couple of non-premium legacy pieces that I think are quite useful on the Joker. And the first one is going to be the modified Joker Venom Grenade. This is a mythic legacy piece. You're going to be getting attack percent and spiritual amp percent as well. This is sort of like a mini full scepter, I think. And then you're going to get the skill Rolling on the Floor Laughing, which increases effect accuracy, and the first 3 times you cast your ultimate will also increase Joker's attack. This is the legacy item that I'm currently using on the Joker, and I found it to be quite helpful. And the last item is going to be the Energy Mace. This is probably the best starter legacy piece for Joker. Probably newer accounts that don't have a lot of mythic legacy pieces, this is the one you're going to want to go for to start out. But you really want to upgrade to Joker Venom Grenade as soon as possible. You're going to be getting attack and effect accuracy with this one. The last thing that I want to talk about is a few more of those notable synergies that we were discussing earlier. A couple of these come on that recommended long-term team that you're looking for, but I think there are also ones that you may end up using quite frequently in some of the other game modes as you're working up to that more, I would say, like I said, premium team that you're going for. And the first one is Ivy. Ivy is a champion that I've always been very high on, and I'm coming back around to thinking that she actually needs to be moved up on our tier list to S tier. The reason that I would recommend Ivy to be in a lineup with the Joker is you're trying to get as many debuffs on the team as possible, and Ivy offers a couple of those. The first one is Ivy Thorn, which deals physical damage. And then the second one is Bewitch, which is probably less likely to come into play, but it's a really neat mechanic that slows the opponent and sort of pulls taunt for a second, forces those champions to slowly walk towards Ivy for a few seconds, which might be just enough time for you to, nuke the opponents with one of your ultimates or what have you. And also, Ivy is going to double as your healer, so she's just an incredible support and healer unit for any team, but definitely for Joker's team. And Scarecrow is the second one that I would mention here. Scarecrow has a couple of debuff mechanics. So the first one is going to be Scare, which is a damage reduction mechanic. And the more times that Scarecrow inflicts Scare, the more damage is going to be reduced, and that's just going to make your team a lot more survivable. And then the second one is Mental Breakdown, and Mental Breakdown is going to reduce Men. Men's another one of these mechanics that's important for you to understand that is not necessarily readily understandable from looking at it, but Men, the more men you have, the more you'll reduce spiritual damage taken. So again, another important survivability mechanic for a team like this. And then the last champion that I will mention here is Two-Face. Two-Face has a couple of debuff mechanics. The first one being Panic, which reduces spiritual defense, and the second one being Bleeding, which deals physical damage over time. Now, that panic debuff is incredibly important. If you're going up against a champion or an enemy where you know they're going to be around for a long time, again, those combat cycle style bosses, or maybe a pesky training simulator boss where they're just very tanky. If you can get panic onto a champion and then kill that champion, and it spreads to all the other champions or all the other enemies on the battlefield, that could be incredibly helpful for your Joker to be able to get a win condition, basically just kill all the other ones very quickly. Because reducing spiritual defense is going to pair really well with, spreading 100 stacks or, as many stacks as possible of Joker Venom. There's a couple of other Arkham's Most Wanted champions here. We can see Catwoman, Penguin, and Bane. I don't think that they fit as well into the Joker's team or what you're trying to do with the Joker. Obviously, if you want to run a full synergy team, go ahead. I don't believe that the game is set up for running a full energy team or full synergy team right now. So I would not necessarily recommend using Catwoman, Penguin, and probably not Bane either. I think you really want to stick with sort of that trio of Scarecrow, Joker, and Ivy, and you can throw in a couple of other champions alongside them. And in some cases in combat cycle, you really won't even need the Scarecrow. You just take Joker and Ivy and just plug them into whatever other team you're using. So, I might like to use Joker and Ivy with my Superman and a couple of other strong champions. Maybe I'll throw Sinestro in there or Constantine. Those are champions that if you're newer, you're going to get them eventually. But that's really it for the Joker kit. The last thing that I'll mention with the Joker, and this is quite important, so I hate that I'm putting it at the end of the video, but a lot of people have been asking, should I continue to pull for Superman or should I pull for the Joker? And it really depends a lot on what you're trying to do with your account. I definitely think that Superman is a champion you should be pulling for or drawing for if you have a lot of time left on his banner. So if you start on a new server and you're Superman, you have 20 plus days to pull for him, you should definitely be trying to get as many copies of Superman as you possibly can. He's one of the best champions in the game. If you're starting on a new server and your Superman you only have maybe 10, 12 days left to pull for him, you need to heavily consider just going for the Joker so that you can get as many stars as you can on him. I say that because Superman is a great champion when you have him at high stars, not quite so much if you only get him at 0 stars. And what you can really hamper your account with is if you're going after Superman and you get him to 0 stars, and then you're late coming into Joker's banner and you try to get him as well, and you get him at 0 stars, well, now you have 2 S-tier champions that don't have their skills unlocked, and you're just not going to be able to do as much with those champions over time. They may help you out initially, but as you grow your account, 0-star S-tier champions aren't really going to do much. They may end up just riding your bench. So keep that in mind. Obviously, everybody's situation is different. They're both great champions. And again, I highly recommend that anyone who is trying to future plan for their account goes after Joker. Great champion and highly recommend it. If you enjoyed this video, definitely consider hitting the like button. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what your future plans are with the Joker and all of his teammates. And as always, please consider subscribing if you would like to see more DC Dark Legion content. And if not, I'll see you in the next video.